Right now, if you're burning up, you just walk to the fridge, grab some ice, drop it in your glass, and chill. It's an effortless, completely boring reflex. You probably never even think about it. But let's rewind the clock to 500 years. Put yourself right in the middle of the unforgiving Persian desert, where summer temperatures are violently baking the earth at over 104 degrees Fahrenheit. There is no electricity. There are no refrigerators. And there are absolutely no mechanical compressors. So how on earth were ancient Persian kings sitting comfortably in their palaces, scooping up bowls of brain-freezing, icy faluda? Where exactly did they get solid ice in the middle of Earth's giant oven? To answer that, we first have to look at our own arrogance. We've always been taught that ancient people lived brutal, primitive lives, completely at the mercy of the weather. We automatically assume that before the 19th century brought us electricity, having ice in the dead of summer was nothing more than fictional magic. In our minds, the absolute best an ancient desert dweller could hope for was a lukewarm, heavily sweating cup of muddy water drawn from a drying clay. Well, we treat freezing ice as the ultimate, exclusive privilege of modern civilization, something that absolutely requires spinning turbines, copper coils, and chemical refrigerants to exist. That assumption sounds perfectly logical, because our modern brains are hardwired to believe that advanced technology requires a power grid. But here is the massive plot twist: that assumption is completely, fundamentally wrong. The ancients weren't just passively sweating and suffering through the blistering summer heat, desperately waiting around for modern science to save them. In reality, they had already hacked the foundational laws of thermodynamics. They actually figured out how to manufacture literal tons of pure, shimmering ice right in the middle of the scorching desert. They mastered a chilling engineering marvel thousands of years before the very first mechanical refrigerator was ever plugged into a wall, proving that human ingenuity didn't start with a light bulb. Welcome to the Yakhchal, the zero-electricity refrigerator of the Persian Empire, dating back to 400 BC. It was a colossal, domed mud brick structure rising out of the earth like a giant desert beehive. The secret to its incredible freezing power wasn't a machine. It was a miraculous, ancient supermortar known as sarouj. This wasn't just packed dirt. It was an impenetrable, highly engineered composite made from a precise, almost alchemical mixture of sand, clay, egg whites, limi, goat hair, and ash. This bizarre combination made the thick walls completely waterproof and practically invincible to thermal heat transfer. During the freezing winter months, the Persians would channel fresh water from a vast network of underground aqueducts, called qanats, straight into the deep base of the Yakhchal. The water would pool and freeze, solid, into massive subterranean glaciers. By the time the blistering 104-degree summer rolled around, that monumental block of ice remained perfectly preserved inside the dark, insulated dome, ready to be chipped away for the royal court's desserts. And Persia wasn't alone in this ancient, freezing arms race. Across the globe, controlling ice was rapidly becoming the ultimate flex of imperial power. Over in Rome, Emperor Nero actually set up an elaborate, high-speed relay system of runners. Their sole purpose was to continuously sprint down the steep Apennine mountains carrying buckets of fresh snow, just so the emperor could enjoy perfectly chilled wine at his decadent banquets. Meanwhile, in ancient China, going as far back as the Zhou dynasty around 1,000 years before Christ, the imperial government established an entire bureaucratic department dedicated entirely to the management of ice. They employed thousands of specialized laborers, officially known as bingren, or icemen, every single winter. This massive workforce would carve colossal blocks of ice from frozen rivers and bury them deep within heavily insulated underground vaults, locking the winter cold away for the brutal summer months. But what makes the ancient Persian engineers truly mind-blowing is that they didn't just store winter ice, they actively manufactured it. They designed and utilized towering, chimney-like structures called wind catchers. Orbadgir. These architectural marvels would catch the scorching desert breeze, funnel it forcefully down into the subterranean chambers, and run it directly over the freezing underground Kanat water. As the air rapidly cooled, it would sink to the bottom, while the remaining hot air was naturally drafted up and violently expelled through a specialized hole at the very peak of the dome. But their absolute masterstroke was tapping into a profound scientific phenomenon known as radiational cooling. In the desert environment, the night skies are incredibly clear and devoid of moisture. The Persians strategically built shallow, expansive pouring pools right outside the Yakhchals. They intuitively understood that without a thick blanket of cloud cover, thermal heat radiates directly off the water and escapes straight into the freezing void of space. Because of this brilliant, physics-defying design, the water in these shallow pools would rapidly dump its heat to the night sky and actually freeze solid. Even on specific nights, when the ambient air temperature never technically dropped below freezing. They weren't fighting nature, they were weaponizing pure physics to trick the environment into doing their exact bidding. Let's pause for a second and really let the weight of that sink in. In the ancient world, a crystal clear block of ice in the middle of July was not just a refreshing way to beat the heat. It was the ultimate, undeniable manifestation of supreme geopolitical power when an ancient Persian king sat across from a visiting foreign envoy and casually handed him a frost-covered goblet of ice water in the middle of a burning desert. The message had absolutely nothing to do with hospitality. That ice was a highly calculated psychological weapon. The unspoken message was loud and clear. I am a ruler who can command the very elements. I can literally bend the weather to my will and drag the freezing dead of winter right into the middle of the scorching summer. Are you seriously considering declaring war on a man who wields the power of the gods? Drinking ice water back then was the ancient equivalent of a technological arms race. It was a staggering display of dominance achieved without a single electrical wire, without digital sensors, and without heavy modern machinery. Instead, they relied on something far more powerful, the sheer, unadulterated brilliance of the human mind. Through meticulous observation, ruthless trial and error, and an incredibly deep, intimate understanding of the earth, down to the exact behavior of every desert breeze and the hidden flow of every subterranean aquifer, they conquered one of the most unforgiving survival limits on the planet. This wasn't just a story of arrogant kings indulging in blind, decadent luxury. This was the absolute, blinding zenith of ancient human intellect, proving that true power isn't about fighting the elements, but mastering them so completely that they serve you on a silver platter. Now, look back at that simple ice cube floating in your glass right now. We live in an unprecedented era where freezing water is so ridiculously cheap and abundant that we casually throw it down the sink without a second thought. But to buy that modern convenience, we have to plug into massive electrical grids, burn through mountains of fossil fuels, and pump millions of tons of toxic refrigerant gases into the atmosphere. We are literally boiling the entire planet outside just to keep one tiny little metal box inside our kitchens comfortably cold. Our ancient ancestors managed to summon freezing temperatures by working in perfect, elegant harmony with the natural world. They collaborated with the shifting desert winds, the Earth's deep thermal mass, and the vast, freezing vacuum of the night sky, and because of that profound respect, their brilliant mud brick monuments still stand proudly in the desert millennia later. We, on the other hand, try to brute force our way to the exact same result by actively fighting nature. We rely on fragile plastic and metal machines that are deliberately designed to break down and rot in massive, rusting landfills within 5 short years. So, the next time you casually yank open your refrigerator door to grab a cold drink on a hot summer day, take a moment to ask yourself a deeply uncomfortable question. Have we actually become a more advanced civilization, Or did we just invent a significantly more expensive, highly destructive way to do exactly what a clever Persian king already figured out 2,500 years ago?